Welcome to Lotus Light Teachings, where we explore timeless wisdom, inner peace, and the art of mastering life's challenges. Today, we're diving deep into something truly transformative: the power of stillness. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by life's chaos, reacting impulsively to situations and later regretting it? What if I told you that true strength isn't about how fast you act, how loud you respond, or how much you fight back, but about how still you can remain in the face of adversity? In this episode, we'll unravel the secret of stillness, why it's the most underrated superpower, and how mastering it can make you unshakable in any storm. We'll share powerful stories, real-life insights, and practical steps that will help you cultivate a sense of calm no matter what life throws your way. So, take a deep breath, settle in, and let's embark on this journey together. Picture this: you're standing at the edge of a vast ocean. A storm is brewing. The waves thrash wildly, the wind howls, the sky darkens. You have two choices: jump in and get tossed around by the chaos, or stand firm, feet planted on solid ground, knowing that the storm will pass. Which one do you choose? Life, in many ways, is like this ocean. The storms come in the form of unexpected challenges. Someone cuts you off in traffic, a colleague takes credit for your idea, a loved one says something that stings. Our first instinct? React. Defend. Attack. But what if, instead of reacting, you paused? What if you let the storm rage around you but refused to let it enter you? Today, we explore the power of stillness, the ability to stay calm in a world that constantly demands a reaction. Through powerful stories, ancient wisdom, and modern psychology, we'll uncover why stillness is not about passivity but about mastery of the mind. Because when you learn to control your inner world, nothing in the outer world can shake you. There's an old Zen story about a wise master and an angry visitor. One day, a man stormed into the master's home, furious. "You're a fraud," he shouted. "You claim to be wise, but you're just another man in a robe pretending to know more than others." The master listened in silence. The man continued, growing louder, more aggressive, waiting for a reaction. But the master remained still, simply observing. Finally, after the man had exhausted himself, the master smiled gently and asked, "If someone offers you a gift and you refuse to accept it, to whom does it belong?" The man blinked. "To the one who offered it, of course." The master nodded. "Then, if I refuse to accept your anger, it still belongs to you." The visitor stood in stunned silence. His anger, which had been so powerful a moment ago, now felt meaningless. This is the essence of stillness. Not suppressing emotions, not avoiding confrontation, but choosing not to absorb negativity. Imagine if you could live like this. How many times have you carried someone else's bad mood with you? How often have you let external events dictate your emotions? We don't realize it, but every time we react impulsively, we surrender our power. But when you cultivate stillness, you take back control. Stillness is not just about sitting in meditation. It's about mastering the space between stimulus and response. It's about training yourself to pause before reacting, to observe without judgment, and to respond only when necessary. It's about realizing that not every battle is worth fighting. And this power, this ability to remain steady when the world around you is in chaos, is what separates those who struggle through life from those who navigate it with grace. Why reacting isn't true control. Imagine this. You're driving home after a long day. Your mind is heavy with thoughts. Work deadlines, that awkward conversation from earlier, what to cook for dinner. The sun is setting, casting a golden glow over the road. For a moment, there's peace. Then, out of nowhere, someone cuts you off. Your heart jumps. Your hands grip the steering wheel tighter. Your body tenses. Your first instinct? Slam the horn. Shout. Maybe even tailgate the driver to teach them a lesson. But let's pause. What does that reaction accomplish? Does it make them a better driver? Does it rewind time and undo what just happened? Or does it only rob you of your own peace? Most of us live in reaction mode. A bad email from a boss? We feel defensive. A stranger is rude? We mirror their energy. A plan falls apart? We panic. But here's the truth we often overlook: reacting impulsively isn't control. It's the exact opposite. It makes us controlled by circumstances, puppets to our emotions. True power is not in the reaction. It's in the pause. I once heard a story about a Buddhist monk who had mastered this principle. A young man, full of arrogance, stormed into his temple, yelling insults. The villagers gathered, expecting the monk to respond, to put this man in his place. But the monk didn't move. After a long silence, he simply asked, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The young man blinked, confused. "To the giver, of course." The monk smiled. "Then if I do not accept your anger, it remains with you." That's stillness. That's control. That's the kind of peace that no one can take away from you. Unless you let them. Let me tell you about Daniel. It was a regular morning at his favorite cafe. The smell of fresh coffee, the warmth of the sun spilling through the windows, the soft murmur of people easing into their day. He had just taken his first sip when, bam, someone rushing past knocked into his table. Coffee spilled all over his crisp white shirt. The cup crashed onto the floor, shattering into pieces. The whole cafe fell into silence, waiting for his reaction. Most people would have snapped. A sharp intake of breath, an angry outburst, a demand for an apology. And honestly, no one would blame them. But Daniel paused. He looked down at his ruined shirt, the coffee soaking through. Then he exhaled, reached for a napkin, and smiled. "It's okay," he said, his voice calm. "Accidents happen." The man who had bumped into him let out a breath he didn't even realize he was holding. His shoulders dropped, his face softened. The room, once tense, returned to its usual hum. And just like that, the moment passed. Daniel could have spent the rest of his morning replaying that moment, stewing in frustration. Instead, he let it go. He protected his peace. And what's even more powerful? In that small, simple act, he influenced everyone around him. The energy of the cafe shifted. People felt the difference. That's the ripple effect of choosing stillness. There's a reason why the greatest minds in history have mastered the art of self-control. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison. 27 years. But when he finally walked free, he wasn't bitter. He didn't seek revenge. He chose forgiveness. He understood something most of us struggle with. Anger is a prison, and the only way out is through letting go. Similarly, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., the Dalai Lama, they all embodied the same strength. The ability to remain unshaken in the face of adversity. Not because they were weak, but because they understood a fundamental truth. Your energy is your most valuable resource, and not every battle deserves it. But here's the hard part. Stillness doesn't come naturally. Our minds have been trained. By society, by our upbringing, by years of conditioning. To react, to defend, to prove something. And yet, what if we trained ourselves to do the opposite? To pause, to breathe, to ask, is this worth my energy? Will reacting improve this situation? Or am I just feeding the chaos? Most of the time, the answer is clear. Think about it. How many arguments could have been avoided if someone had simply paused instead of reacting? How many moments of peace have been sacrificed to battles that never truly mattered? Stillness isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's understanding that not everything requires your response. Aisha used to be the most reactive person in the room. If someone criticized her work, she felt personally attacked. If plans changed, she immediately spiraled into frustration. If a friend canceled last minute, she took it as a sign they didn't value her. Then, one evening, after a particularly exhausting day, she sat by a lake. She kicked a rock into the water, watching the ripples spread outward. And then she noticed something deeper. Beneath the surface agitation, the depths of the lake remained untouched. The ripples only disturbed the surface. That was her aha moment. She realized she had been living at the surface, allowing every little disturbance to shake her. But just like that lake, she had a choice. She could stay reactive, or she could anchor herself in something deeper. From that night on, she practiced stillness. When a colleague made a snarky comment, she simply nodded and moved on. When someone was rude to her, she didn't carry it with her all day. She had learned something most people never do. The world will always be chaotic, but you don't have to let it inside you. So here's my question for you. The next time life tests you, when someone cuts you off in traffic, when an unexpected challenge arises, when the world demands a reaction from you, will you hand over your power? Or will you pause, breathe, and choose something different? Because here's the thing. The storm will come. It always does. But you don't have to let it shake you. If this message resonated with you, let's keep the conversation going. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had a moment where you chose stillness over reaction? How did it change the outcome? And if you found even a sliver of wisdom in these words, consider sharing this with someone who might need it today. Because in a world full of noise, sometimes the most powerful answer is silence. Stay still. Stay strong. Stay unshaken. See you in the next one. The king's wisdom, the gift of anger. There was a king once, wise beyond his years. His people admired him, his enemies respected him, and his court stood in awe of his calm. One day, a furious man stormed into his hall, his voice sharp with accusation, his words dripping with insult. "You are weak," the man spat. "Your decisions are foolish, your rule is unjust." The court held its breath. Surely the king would retaliate. Surely he would cast this man out, or worse, have him punished for his insolence. But the king didn't move. Instead, he smiled. A slow, knowing smile. Then he spoke, his voice measured and warm. "If someone offers you a gift," the king said, "and you refuse to accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man frowned, confused. "To the one who offered it, of course." The king nodded. "Then if I refuse to accept your anger, to whom does it belong?" The room fell silent. The man, who had arrived with a storm in his heart, found himself standing in the middle of absolute stillness. His rage, which had been so powerful just moments ago, now seemed to hang in the air. Unwanted, unanswered, meaningless. That was the moment he understood. His anger had no power here. And that, my friend, is the greatest gift of all. I heard this story for the first time when I was a teenager, and I wish I could say I understood its wisdom back then. But the truth is, I spent years accepting every gift of anger that came my way. If someone was rude to me, I matched their energy. If life didn't go my way, I let frustration fester. I thought standing up for myself meant always fighting back. But the older I got, the more I realized that not every battle deserves to be fought. Have you ever noticed how quickly our moods can be hijacked? A coworker makes a passive-aggressive comment, and suddenly your whole day is ruined. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and you carry that frustration with you for hours. A stranger says something rude online, and before you know it, you're spiraling into an argument with someone you'll never meet. But here's the question: why do we let them? Why do we give our peace away so freely? There was a time in my life when I thought I had to react to everything. Someone disrespected me? I made sure they knew I wouldn't tolerate it. Someone said something unfair? I had to set the record straight. I thought this was strength. But one day I saw something that changed me. I was in a park watching an older gentleman sit on a bench feeding pigeons. A group of teenagers walked by, laughing and pushing each other. One of them, for no reason at all, kicked at the pigeons, sending them scattering into the sky. The old man just watched them, a small smile on his face. One of the boys turned to him, grinning. "Why are you smiling, old man?" he taunted. "I just scared your birds away." The old man chuckled softly. "They are not my birds," he said. "They belong to the sky." The boy frowned, confused, but I understood in that moment. The man had refused to let a stranger's actions dictate his peace. He didn't own the birds. He simply enjoyed them while they were there. And when they were gone, he let them go. How many of us are still holding on to anger, still gripping tightly to the words of people who have long since moved on? How many of us carry the weight of insults that were never meant to be ours in the first place? Let's try an experiment. The next time someone offers you anger, pause. Don't react instantly. Don't let the first surge of emotion dictate what happens next. Instead, breathe and ask yourself, is this situation worth my energy? Will my reaction improve anything? Or am I just feeding the negativity? Because here's the secret: most of the time, the answer is no. Most of the time, the anger you're tempted to respond with is not about justice, not about setting things right. It's just a reflex. And reflexes can be retrained. The next time someone cuts you off in traffic, instead of letting it fester, try saying, "That person must be in a hurry. I hope they get where they need to go safely." The next time a coworker throws a passive-aggressive remark your way, instead of snapping back, just smile and say, "Thanks for your input," and move on. The next time life hands you an unexpected challenge, instead of shouting, "Why me?" try whispering, "What can this teach me?" Little by little, you'll realize something incredible. You don't have to carry everything that is handed to you. Oprah Winfrey once said, "You are responsible for the energy you bring into a room." But I think there's another side to that. You are also responsible for the energy you choose to accept. If someone hands you anger, do you take it? If someone offers you drama, do you let it in? If life throws you a test, do you meet it with frustration or with curiosity? Every single day, we are given opportunities to decide who we are in the face of the world's noise. And the truth is, some of the strongest, most powerful people I've ever met aren't the ones who win the most arguments or have the loudest voices. They are the ones who know when to walk away, when to breathe, and when to simply smile. They are the ones who know, like the wise king, that anger is a gift they do not have to accept. So let me ask you this. What would your life look like if you stopped picking up every stone that was thrown at you? What if, instead of carrying anger, you simply let it pass through you like the wind? What if, the next time someone tried to shake you, you smiled and said, "This does not belong to me"? Maybe, just maybe, that's what true freedom really looks like. And maybe it's time to finally take it. If this message resonated with you, share it with someone who might need this reminder today. And if you've ever had a moment where you chose stillness over reaction, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Let's keep this conversation going. Because in a world full of noise, sometimes the most powerful response is silence. Stay calm. Stay wise. Stay unshaken. The still lake, learning to let go. Aisha used to let everything get under her skin. A rude comment from a stranger, a delayed meeting, an unexpected change in plans. Each one felt like a personal attack, as if the universe itself was conspiring against her. She would replay conversations in her mind, wondering if she should have said something different. She carried anger like a heavy backpack, lugging it from one moment to the next, exhausted but unwilling to set it down. One evening, after a particularly frustrating day at work, she found herself at a quiet lake near her home. The sky was painted in deep oranges and soft purples, and the water reflected the colors like a giant mirror. She sat on a rock, hugging her knees, her thoughts still racing. Frustration bubbled inside her, so she picked up a stone and hurled it into the water. The splash broke the lake's stillness, sending ripples in every direction. She watched as they spread outward, distorting the reflection of the sky. And then something caught her attention. Beneath the ripples, the depths of the lake remained untouched. The surface reacted, but the deeper waters stayed calm. That's when it hit her. Her whole life, she had been living at the surface, letting every ripple, every minor inconvenience disturb her peace. But the lake had shown her another way. She realized she could choose to be like its depths. Still, steady, untouched by passing storms. For the first time in a long while, she exhaled deeply, as if she was releasing all the weight she had been carrying. And in that moment, she decided, not every ripple needs a reaction. I think we've all been Aisha at some point in our lives. We've all let a stranger's rude words ruin our morning. We've all replayed arguments in our heads, mentally crafting comebacks for conversations that are long over. We've all wasted energy worrying about things completely out of our control. But what if we didn't? What if we trained ourselves to be like the depths of the lake? What if we stopped chasing every ripple, engaging in every battle, reacting to every disturbance? There's an old saying, ships don't sink because of the water around them. They sink because of the water that gets inside them. The world will always have waves, but you get to decide whether or not you let them in. I once heard a story about a samurai who approached a Zen master seeking wisdom. "Master," he said, "I struggle with anger. When someone insults me, I react without thinking. When things don't go my way, I lose control. How can I find peace?" The Zen master took the samurai to a pond and asked him to look into the water. "Tell me what you see." The samurai looked. The water was clear and still, reflecting his face perfectly. "This is your mind at peace," the master said. "When it is still, it reflects the world as it is, without distortion." Then, without warning, the master picked up a large stone and threw it into the pond. The water churned, waves spreading in every direction. "Now look again," he said. The samurai peered into the water, but the reflection was gone. The surface was disturbed, broken. "This is your mind when you let anger take over," the master explained. "It distorts everything, making it impossible to see clearly." The samurai nodded, understanding. "Be like the still water," the master said. "Do not let every stone thrown your way break your peace. Stillness is not something we are born with. It is a skill we cultivate. And like any skill, it requires practice. Think about people who seem unshaken by chaos. Leaders like Nelson Mandela, the Dalai Lama, or Marcus Aurelius. They weren't born with an unbreakable spirit. They built it. They understood that reacting to every ripple only creates more turbulence. Mandela spent 27 years in prison. Yet when he was released, he did not let bitterness define him. He chose forgiveness over resentment, peace over anger. He did not let the world dictate his inner state. That is the power of stillness. That is the power of letting go. But let's be real. Learning to let go is easier said than done. It's hard not to react when someone is disrespectful. It's hard not to get frustrated when things don't go as planned. It's hard not to let fear, anger, and anxiety take control. So how do we practice stillness in real life? Here's what I've learned. Pause before reacting. The next time you feel triggered, take a breath. Just 1 second of stillness can change everything. A pause gives you the power to choose your response instead of defaulting to reaction. Practice mindfulness. Spend time in silence. Meditate. Go for a walk without your phone. The more comfortable you become with stillness, the less you'll feel the need to fill every moment with noise. Let go of what you can't control. If something is out of your hands, why waste energy stressing over it? Control what you can. your attitude, your actions, your mindset, and release the rest. Choose your battles wisely. Not everything deserves your attention. Ask yourself, is this worth my peace? If the answer is no, let it go. Not every ripple needs a reaction. Learn from the wise. Read about those who have mastered this art. Buddhist monks, Stoic philosophers, great leaders. They all knew one thing. True strength is not in fighting every battle, but in knowing when to walk away. A few months after that evening by the lake, Aisha's friends started noticing a change in her. She was still the same person, but something was different. She didn't get upset as easily. She didn't engage in petty arguments. She had learned to let things pass without letting them in. One day, a coworker made a snide remark about her work. The old Aisha would have spent the whole day fuming. But now, she just smiled and moved on. A friend asked her, "How do you stay so calm all the time?" Aisha thought for a moment, then replied, "I realize that not everything deserves my reaction. Some things are just ripples on the surface." Her friend nodded, but the words stayed with her long after. So let me ask you, what are the ripples in your life right now? A difficult coworker? A delayed flight? A rude stranger? Are they worth your energy? Or are they just surface disturbances? Ripples in a lake that will soon settle? What would happen if, instead of reacting to every ripple, you anchored yourself in something deeper, something unshakable? Because in the end, life will always have waves. But peace? That's something you can choose. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to choose it. If this message resonated with you, share it with someone who needs this reminder today. And if you've ever had a moment where you let go instead of reacting, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Let's keep this conversation going. Because in a world full of noise, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is be still. Stay calm, stay wise, stay unshaken. The next time life throws a challenge your way, I want you to try something different. Instead of reacting, pause. Take a deep breath. Observe. Ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Will my reaction improve the situation? Or am I just feeding the chaos? Because most of the time you'll realize the storm will pass, but your peace is yours to protect. The strongest people in the world aren't the ones who fight every battle. They're the ones who know when to remain still. So, I leave you with this question. How can you bring more stillness into your life? If this message resonated with you, if you found even a spark of wisdom in these words, I invite you to like, share, and comment below. Tell me, what was your biggest takeaway? And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe to Lotus Light Teachings so you never miss an episode on mastering the art of inner peace. Because in a world full of noise, the most powerful answer is often silence. See you in the next episode. Until then, stay still, stay strong, stay unshaken.